Hello. Okay, so hey everyone, this is me Viraj, and today we'll be learning about objects and maps and sets in JavaScript. So what are these? We'll be learning all these three, and basically the main objective of our today's video is actually learning about objects. So the other two, that is sets and maps, are basically very basic stuff. Okay, so first of all, we'll be starting with the objects, then we'll be looking into some basic concepts of sets and maps. All right, so let's begin. Okay, so before moving on, I actually want you to do something. First of all, hit that like button, because these videos actually take a lot of dedication, and I need to search a lot of content before actually providing that to you. So smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And one more thing, this specific course is only for data structures. Okay, this specific series is only for data structures. The reason is that I think that first we can proceed with data structure, and we can learn algorithms separately. But if you want to learn all the basics of data structures, algorithms, and also some mathematical concepts using JavaScript, then we have a dedicated course at Geeks for Geeks. So for that, you can actually click the link available in the live chat, or you can check out the description. So it's basically a course which teaches you JavaScript, okay, JavaScript with data structures and algorithms. So this is a very great course, and it's a recent one. Recently we have launched this course, so you can take an overview of this one, and it's a paid course. So if anybody wants to purchase this, definitely they can, and you can see that all the things which are going to be taught here, you can actually see all the concepts which are going to be taught here. And if anybody wants to learn data structures and algorithms in JavaScript, there can be any reason, because a lot of people actually learn JavaScript for web development purposes or backend purpose. So you can actually implement data structures and algorithms in that way. Okay, so you can observe this, and you can purchase this if you want. All right, so now we will continue. So first of all, we'll see what is an object in JavaScript. Then we'll be looking into how are objects different from other data types, and then we'll see object as key value pairs, and then creating objects using object little syntax. So we'll be covering a few more points after this, that is different procedures which we follow in an object, and we'll be learning each things required in object, because I will assume that this video will be the only video which you need to look when you are learning about objects. Okay, so let's begin. So okay, so what is object in JavaScript? So object is a complex data type. Basically, it can be counted as a data structure, but I would say that it's more of a data type that allows you to store and organize multiple values together. Like you can store your name, email, age, some kind of values like this in any object. Like all these variables, you can consider name as a variable, email as a variable, age as a variable, all these variables in a single object. Okay, an object can be definitely you can create multiple objects, and you can actually create separate objects, and you can store it in an array. So you can actually assume it as, I'll give you an example. Suppose I'm talking about Instagram. So Instagram, when I see my profile, okay, when I see my profile, so I'll get my profile picture, I'll get my name, I'll get my description, beautiful descriptions, and then I'll also get my posted photos and a lot of more stuff. So as you can see, this data is actually coming in format of single object. Okay, this object is my object. Okay, this data is my data, so this object will be containing all of my data. So objects can be used in these kind of things where you want to actually carry out all of the data in a single package. Okay, so we'll be seeing that. I'll just give you a few more examples so that you will get a better idea why do we use objects. So objects in JavaScript can be thought of as containers that hold properties, key value pairs, which we'll be looking later on, and methods to manipulate those principles. So method simply means functions. Okay, so usually we call methods as functions. So basically we can actually create functions also inside any object. We can store functions also, and whenever we call that object, that function can also be called using that object. So we'll be seeing that also. And now, how are objects different from other data types? You could have used other data types like single variables and something like that. So unlike simple data types as numbers or strings, objects in JavaScript are actually more flexible and can store multiple values, like name, email, and something like that. Name can be a normal string, email can be also a normal string, age can be a number, and something like this. So you can store any kind of values in a single object. So if I talk specifically about objects, so object provide a way to model real world entities, like I told you, real world example Instagram, or concepts by organizing related data. That is, if I want to see my data, so it will organize related data in an object and will give it to me. All right, so that's how you can actually store data and you can get data by creating an object. So objects have properties that hold values and methods that perform actions and related to the object. All right, so now how can we view any object as a collection of key value pairs? Okay, as a collection of key value pairs. So objects in JavaScript are often referred to as a collection of key value pairs, and this sounds like haunted stuff, like key value pairs. What are these key value pairs? So it's a very basic term, and it's very important term. If I give you an example of key value pair, your key can be name, okay, and value will be its value, that is Harshal. Okay, your key will be name and value will be Harshal. Your key will be age, okay, and value will be 25 or something like that. Okay, so now you can get an idea what is actually a key and what will be the value. So these are pairs by which we will be storing the data inside any object. Okay, so each property of an object will have a unique name associated with a value. Like I have an object, I can't create two names with single key value. Okay, so I can't have two names. Okay, I can't have two different ages. So that's what that means. We'll be creating an object and storing unique values. So the values in an object can be of any data type, as I told you, numbers, strings, booleans, arrays, etc. Okay, you can also store an array inside an object. You can also store a function inside an object. You can also store a number inside an object. You can store strings inside an object. So all kind of data types almost can be stored inside an object in JavaScript. So now we'll be creating a basic structure of objects so that you get a better idea how it's actually visible in JavaScript. So let's begin with our coding part. Alright, so before moving on, I will actually open the source code first. So from the last two lectures, I was actually creating these folders. So today also I'll be creating a new folder, and lecture 1 is not present here because in lecture 1 we didn't code anything. Okay, that's why. So we'll be creating lecture 4. Okay, so lecture 4, and I'll just open it with VS Code. So if you haven't installed VS Code and Node.js, then please install it, and you can refer my previous videos to watch how it's installed, or you can refer any tutorial on YouTube. You'll get a idea of that. Okay, it's very basic. So now what I'll do is, first of all, I'll simply create a file named as index1.js. Okay, so inside this we'll be writing our JavaScript files. So let's say we have an object. So an object can be simply created by simply creating a name. Just give it a name. So user1. Okay, suppose this is the user data of user1, some user. Okay, so a user can have a unique ID by which the user is identified. So suppose the id is 12345, something like this. Okay, this id will always be unique so that you can be identified very easily. Okay, and now I'll just say, suppose the name is John Doe, and you can say that the age is 25. Okay, so you can see that we have actually stored a string here, we have actually stored age here. Also you can say that suppose the hobbies are, so you can actually create an array and you can actually store some values inside that array. So you can see that you can store different kind of values in a single object. So this whole is an object. Okay, and you can actually create multiple objects inside a single array also. What I'm trying to say is const my users. Okay, so suppose this is an array which is containing a few users data. Okay, so it can actually have different objects. Suppose this object is here. Okay, this object is here. Okay, so you can see that this is the first object. Okay, similarly you can create a different object with different properties. Right now I'm just giving same properties, but these properties can match. One object's property can match to another object's property. Okay, another values keys. Okay, another object's keys. But suppose if I try to create another id, okay, and I'll just say again 12345. So right now you won't see any error, but this is actually not allowed by creating any object. Okay, so please see that you have unique keys, okay, inside an object. Okay, this must not be repeated. All right, so we have these kind of, this is an array of objects, this is a single object. Okay, inside this we have an array, so vice versa. So now we'll be just commenting this out and we'll be working on our single object. Okay, so this is a single object, and we can actually do one more thing. We can create a function inside this object. So suppose we have a greet function, and which will simply do what? We have created a greet function. Okay, so you just need to create a function like this, and here you can simply say console.log. Okay, you can simply say console.log hello world. Okay, so what will happen is actually we have created a function also inside that object. So if you want to call a specific function, you can also call this via this object. Okay, so how it can happen? Suppose you are a front-end developer, okay, and this kind of data is coming from backend. You don't know what this function does, but you can call this function. You haven't created this function from front end, but it's actually coming from the backend, so you can actually call this function and you can do some basic stuffs from that. Okay, so definitely there will be more complications. Some files not be actually be available from your side, so you need to look into that, what kind of function you are actually calling from front end side. So that's a broader concept, but let's be more basic right now. All right, so now we'll be accessing properties of an object. So you can see that this project has a few properties, that is id, name, age. These are properties. Okay, these are properties. All right, and this is a key, this is a value, this is a key, this is a value. Okay, so key value pairs, and together a key value pair is considered as a property. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll be suppose I want to get the name, so I'll simply say I want to get the name of my user one. Okay, so I'll just say, suppose if I print user one, and if I just go to the terminal, okay, I'll simply type node. Yeah, so I'll simply type node script1.js. So if I hit enter, actually the name is index1.js, I'm sorry, index1.js. Okay, so if I hit enter, now you can see I got the object, okay, so by simply calling this I got the object. Suppose I say user1 dot name. Okay, so now what will happen is I'll get the name, that is John Doe. Okay, I can also get the array. Suppose if I call user1 hobbies, so you can see I got the whole array. Suppose I want to get the index one, okay, that means sports. Okay, I want to get the sports. Okay, so it will simply give me sports. So that's how you can actually access an array inside this object, and this will be really important when you call data from backend to front end. This is really important, so please watch this part again if you didn't understand that. It's very easy, you just need to understand what you are trying to get. So inside user one, inside hobbies, okay, inside hobbies, inside this array we have the sports. Okay, so I hope you got the idea. So that's how you can call things here. And now what we'll do is there is actually another method. Right now we have actually used dots here. Okay, we have actually used dots here. So we can actually use a different method. Suppose if I type console.log and I'll say user one. By the way, what will happen if I call this function from here, that is greet function from here? Let's see what happens. So you can see I'm actually getting hello world, and after this undefined comes usually. Okay, so we'll see that. So now you can see that I am actually getting the data also. All right, so what we can actually do is, I think, okay, so right now what we'll do is we'll be just commenting this out right now, and I'll just copy this. Okay, I'll just copy this, and now I'll tell you how you can access objects in a different method. Okay, so suppose I again want to get the name, so I can actually type it this way also and just remove the dot. Okay, so now what will happen is, okay, I think let's try this with something else. Suppose if I type this with, guys, just a minute. Okay, I actually did one mistake, and this was a very common mistake, and I did this purposely. So the reason is, suppose you have any property, you can either call it this way, okay, you can either call it this way. So let me just make it name again. So right now you can see that this name can be actually some inbuilt thing in JavaScript also. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll simply pass it inside inverted commas. Okay, so here you can see, now if I hit enter, now you can see that I got the name. Okay, so that's how things work, and this is another way, but usually I never use this way. I always prefer this way because this is much easier and you won't face any difficulties here. All right, so now what I'll do is, suppose you have a nested object. Okay, you have a nested object. Suppose you have an address. Okay, so you can actually create an object inside an object also. So suppose the street is this and city is this. Okay, something like this. So you can actually access the address. Inside this you can access the city also. For example, if I give you the example, you can simply say console.log. Inside this you have user1, inside this you have the address, inside this you have the city. So that's how you can actually access the nested things. User1, address, city. That's how you can access the nested things. Okay, so if I just again call this, you can see that I got Boston here. Okay, by the way, these suggestions are actually coming from GitHub Copilot, and I usually use this for saving my time. As you can see that it's a time waste if I write things again and again. Okay, so you can use these kind of extensions to save a lot of time. Okay, so now suppose if I am trying to access any property which does not exist, okay, which does not exist. Right now here you can see phone number does not exist, phone number property does not exist, but for some other user it might exist. Okay, it might exist. Like, for if I talk about Instagram, I haven't provided my phone number yet, but some other user might have provided their phone number. Okay, so how to deal with that? Like, some properties might not be available in your account, but it can be available in others profile. Okay, or suppose if in future Instagram introduce a new feature, okay, a new feature, that is, it will be a new property. Okay, a new property. So obviously old people won't be having those properties, and how to deal with that? How to deal with that? So simply, suppose if I try to call something like console.log, and what I'll do is I'll say user1 dot phone. Okay, phone property, and let's see. So now you can see I'm getting undefined. Okay, I'm getting undefined. So what it actually sees is we don't have this, we don't have this. So it will give us undefined. Okay, it will give us undefined. Undefined simply means that you can actually pass some conditions. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this, and you can, whenever you are writing your code, you need to implement a logic. What logic? You can simply say that if phone number exists, okay, if phone number exists, okay, that means if phone number exists, then you can simply print it, okay, you can simply print it, okay. Else you would say you can perform different operation, like you will show a method to add phone number to the user, something like this. But for now we'll see this. Okay, so now if phone number existed, it will show this, else it won't. So now you can see no phone number, it's showing no phone number because phone number didn't exist. So you can actually play with these objects and you will know a lot more about these objects. So you'll say that if the user does not have a phone number, I will show the user a prompt that please add a phone number. Okay, it's very easy. All right, so now we'll be modifying our objects using different properties. Suppose if I say I want to modify the name, okay, I want to modify the name. So suppose what I'll do is, actually before modifying, I wanted to show you that suppose if I add phone number, okay, if I add phone number user 1 dot phone equals, here what I can do is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0, okay. And now if I try to print the phone number, what will happen? So here you can see now I am getting the phone number. If I try to print the user one, okay, now what will happen is, now you can see I got a new property with named as phone. So you can actually add more values like this also, okay, using the same, okay, you can actually add more values or modify things like that. Suppose if I say that the name is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0, okay, so what will actually happen here is, now you can see that the name is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. So here you can see I modified my name from John Doe to some different thing, okay, some different thing. So that's how you can modify things. And again, you want to access things, you can follow this procedure to know idea how you can access nested things inside any object. Okay, so now we have modified things. Now suppose if I want to remove something, suppose if I want to suppose I'll say that we have phone, okay, we have phone number, and suppose it has this value, okay, it has this value. So now suppose if I want to remove phone property, if I don't want phone property, how can I actually deal with this? So for dealing it, we can simply say just write delete, just write delete, and you can simply write the property which you want to delete. I want to delete phone, okay. So now if I try to get this, you can see now I'm not getting the phone. Suppose if I comment this out, and now if I get this, you can see I'm getting the phone number. So I hope you got the idea of what delete this. You can delete any property using this, okay. All right, so now we'll be talking about more methods. Okay, so here you can see that we have a method, that is a function. Okay, function can be called as a method. Okay, so we have a method here. So how we can actually call this? How we can actually call this? I told you, you can simply call this, or you can simply call this. Okay, you can simply call this. Suppose we'll do one more thing. Let's say right now we have a function here, okay, right now we have a function here. So what I'll do is I'll tell you what this keyword does. Okay, so you might have seen this keyword everywhere. What does this keyword does? Okay, so if I talk about this specific object, its name is John Doe. That means this object has name John Doe. This object has ID this. Okay. This object has age 25. This object has hobbies these. Okay. This object has this address. Okay. This object has this phone number. Okay. What I'm actually trying to say is you can simply print the name by simply calling it here. Okay, so I don't know what's the name of this person, but you can simply do one thing. You can simply type this dot name. Okay, you can simply type this dot name. So what will actually happen is, if I call this function now, if I call this function, So what will actually it do is, okay, so it's printed again, but here you can see hello world John Doe. Okay, hello world John Doe. So it simply got my name. So if my name was something else, it will get my name. Okay, I don't need to write my name here. Okay, so that can be also a use of this keyword and also a method. Okay, also a method. So you can do these things again and again, whatever operations you want to perform. All right. Suppose you have object 2. Suppose you have an object 2. So you can simply say const user 2. Const user 2. Inside this, you can say that, for example, I'll just say name equals, this time I'll say that the name is Harshal. Okay, name is Harshal. And I'll say that greet equals, this time I won't be writing this function. Okay, I won't be writing this function. I'll be actually calling this function. What I simply mean is, I'll just call it here. I'll just say user1 dot greet. So now just make a guess, what will it actually print? What will it actually print? You might be thinking that, yeah, it's calling this and this will be calling this name. Okay, so hello world, this is John Doe. Let's see. So what I'll do is, I'll simply call user2.greet. Okay, I'll simply call user2.greet. So yeah, we have this here. Okay, so now if I just call this, you can see hello world, and now the name is Harshal. Now the name is Harshal. Name is not John Doe. So don't get confused that if I call greet here, it won't be calling this name, it will be calling this name. Okay, so it's actually calling this name. Okay, it's actually calling this name because I have called this keyword here. Okay, this name here. So it will be getting this name. All right, so now I hope this is clear, and this is actually a very important keyword. So please watch this part again if you still don't know what this keyword does. All right, so suppose if I want to iterate over an object, how can I do that? I can simply do, first of all, I'll be just copying this and I'll just comment this out, and again we have this. Okay, so now I want to iterate over each value. So what I can simply do is, I'll be creating a for loop. And I can simply say let key in user1. Okay, user1. So keys will be simply the keys left hand side. Okay, so I'll be printing the keys. So now you'll simply see all the keys are available here. Okay, so that's how you can get the keys, and you just need to write it this way. Suppose if I write key 1 2 3 and I write key 1 2 3, so automatically you can see I'll always get the keys. So you don't need to get confused about the name here. You can just give any name here, you will be getting the keys with that. Okay, so suppose if I want to get its value, so what I can do is, I can simply do one thing. If I want to get its value, what I did was, I can simply call user1, inside the brackets I can pass the key. Okay, so that's how you can get the value. So suppose if I now try to print this, you can see I'm getting the key and the value. So this was the method which we learned before. You can simply provide the value, that is name, so it will call the name. Okay, so I hope you got the idea. That's how you can access these properties using iteration. So now what are object keys? Object.keys. So it's simply, suppose if I print this console.log object dot keys of user1, so it will simply give me all the keys of user1. Okay, that's it. So now if I hit this, you can see I'm getting all the keys of user1. Okay, so similarly, suppose you want the values, so you can simply say that instead of keys you can get all the values like this. So you can see that I'm getting all the values instead of the keys. So that's how you can perform these, and these were some basics. And now suppose if I want to copy any object. Okay, I have this object user1, so you can simply say user2, let user2 equals user1. Okay, so it will simply copy the values of that user. Okay, so let's see. And what will actually happen is, suppose if I say console.log user2, so now you'll see that I have this. Okay, suppose if I change the name, okay, of user2. Okay, suppose if I change the name of user2 to Harshal. Okay, so what will happen is, I'll be getting Harshal, but what will happen to user1? So let's see. Okay, so now you will see that user1 will also now have Harshal. Okay, so if you type like this, it will change both values. It will change this value also, it will change this value also. That means user1's also, user2's also. So how to avoid that? So there are actually different methods. So the first method was actually, we covered it right now. Second method is shallow copy. Okay, shallow copy. So how can we do this? We can simply say that for creating a shallow copy, uh, I'll simply say you can either type const or let. It does not cause any change. So suppose if I write const user2, and this time I'll be creating a shallow copy. Okay, shallow copy. So what will it actually do is, I'll be calling a object method. Okay, I'll be calling a object method, and what I'll actually do is just simply write assign. Inside this, we'll be writing these brackets, and then I'll be writing user1. Okay, I'll be writing user1. And suppose now if I try to print user2, let's see what happens. You can see I'm getting user2. Okay, now if I again try to change the name, you will see that the name has been changed to Harshal. Now if I try to get user1, okay, so now you'll see that it's still John Doe. Okay, it's still John Doe. So you can actually use this also. So you just need to write it this way. Just create a new object and then assign it values of user1. That's it. That's how you can do things. Okay, so this will actually copy things, but if you change user2, it won't change user1. Okay, so I hope you got the difference between normal copying like this, okay, like this, okay, or this one, or you can do it this way. Okay, so I hope you got the difference between them. There is actually another method which is known as deep copy. Okay, deep copy. This is not much different from shallow copy. It's just a different way of writing it. Okay, so deep copy simply does one more thing. You can simply again type const user2. So in this we will be actually using JSON format. Okay, JSON format. Okay, JSON format. And now first of all you need to parse. Okay, parse simply does is convert a string into an object format, okay. Inside this, what I'll do is first convert this into a string. So this will be actually converted to a string. That means a complete paragraph or a sentence. This will be completed in single line, in inverted commas. Okay, so that's how actually data comes from backend in most cases. Then you convert it by using parse method, json.parse. So what will it actually do is, now all the values of user2 are inside user1. If you don't believe me right now, suppose if I make it string, okay, and suppose if I try to print user2, now you'll see that it's actually a string, a sentence. Okay, it's a complete sentence. Now if I say that suppose if I just parse it, okay, json dot parse, inside this I have stringified this. So now what will happen is, again I got the same thing. Okay, so what it did was, it converted the user1 to a string, then it converted into a normal object format. Now I got user2, it's fine. Suppose if I change the name to Harshal, what will happen is, you can see I'm getting Harshal. Now if I try to print user1, you can see that user1 also now has Harshal. Okay, so this is actually known as deep copy, and it's not suggested much, so you can actually ignore this. Okay, actually we have one more method. Suppose if I say const user2 is actually, you can actually create an empty object like this, and then you need to write three dots user1, so it will copy all the values. Okay, so now if I try again, if I change values of user2, what will happen to user1? Let's see this. Okay, so now if I again try to do this, you can see user1 is not affected. So this is a much more easier way and most effective way if you don't want to join user1 and user2. Like if user2 changes, user1 will also change. Okay, something like this. All right, so I hope you got the idea how you can actually copy things in objects. All right, so we have one more thing, one more important term named as object destructuring. So you'll hear this a lot in your development journey, so I'll just explain what is object destructuring. Suppose we have this object, right? So object destructuring simply means that you need to just get all the values. Okay, suppose I'll just say const, suppose this object has name, age, uh, address. Okay, something like this, and you are actually getting name, age and address of user one. Okay, so you don't need to write the complete format like using dot 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 something like this. You can actually avoid this by simply destructuring the object, so it becomes a lot more easier to access these objects. Okay, but in some cases obviously you will face a lot of problems, but both methods will work. Okay, so now if I try to just print these three values, okay, so this can be actually name one, age one. These are some, okay, not these. So you can actually extract the name property, you can extract the age property, and you can extract the address property, and you need to write it as it is because these are the properties, the name can't be changed. Okay, so now if I try to print this, you can see I got the values like this. Okay, so you can actually destructure any object like this. This is called as object destructuring. All right, so these were some basics of objects which we have covered till now, and now we'll be looking into sets and maps. So these are very basic concepts. So set is something like you don't repeat things inside a set, right? You have a set of four natural numbers, okay, four natural numbers, or I would say four unique elements, okay, 10 unique elements. But inside a set, things are always unique. Okay, inside an array, things can be repeated. Okay, so what I'll say is let's create an array. Okay, so what I'll do is we'll be starting set. So for creating a set, let's first understand what's the problem with an array. So you can simply create an array, something like uh, 1 1 1 2 3 5 5 6, something like this. You have an array. Okay, so what I'll do is if I just print this console.log, and if I try to print this array. Okay, so now let's see. So you can see I got the values, but these are values of the array. Suppose now if I convert it to a string, so for converting it into a string set, you can simply create a set by this. Okay, for converting an array to a set, you can simply write it this way. Okay, so you just need to write new set. Inside this you need to pass an array, but instead of that you could have passed directly values. Okay, directly values inside brackets. Okay, both are same, both mean the same. Okay, so now if I try to print the set, what will actually happen is now you can see all the unique elements are there and the duplicate elements are removed. All right, so you can actually add more values to this. So suppose if I want to add more values, you can actually say set dot add. Inside this you can add 10. Okay, inside this if I add 10, I can simply print this. Now you'll see that I'm getting 10. So you can add values like this. This is an approach how you can get things. Suppose you want to get the size, so you can simply get the size by simply typing dot size. Okay, so now if I try to get the size, you can see I'm getting the size as 6. Okay, size will always be one greater than this. Okay, sorry, it's not in this case. So size will actually be, you added 5 here. Okay, you added 10 here, you added 10 here. Okay, so the size will actually be increased now. So suppose if I cut this, okay, if I cut this, now you'll get the idea why size is 6. Okay, so now you can see that we are actually having 6 elements. Okay, so that's why the size is 6. All right, so now similarly if I want to access, suppose if I want to delete something, if I want to delete one from this. Okay, if I want to delete one from this, so now you'll see that one is removed and the size is now 5. Okay, so that's how you can delete things also. Okay, so now if I want to access each element, what I can simply do is I can simply say set one dot, and you can call a for each loop. Inside this each value will be called, and you can actually print these values. Okay, you can actually print these values. So you can simply type console.log value. So what will happen is you'll get, okay, I think for each won't work this way, but let's try this. I haven't tried for each specifically. So instead of that, we could have also, okay, one more thing. I have removed this, sorry. Okay, let's see. So okay, now it's working. So here you can see that I'm getting the values. Okay, so for each loop will also work, but if you want to use normal for loop, you can also use a normal for loop, but I think this is a good method. Okay, suppose if I want to get any specific index like an array, what I can simply do is, suppose if I type console.log, and if I say set, and I want to get the first index. Okay, so now you can see it does not take it as an array. So you need to make sure that how you are actually getting the things. Okay, so one more thing, if I type console.log, and if I say set1 has 1, okay, has 1, it will simply check that if this set is having 1 or not. Okay, so now if I try to print this, you can see it has 1. Okay, suppose if I try to get 11, you can see I don't have 11, so it's giving me false. That's how you can use sets here. Okay, all right. Now we'll be looking into maps. So map is a collection of key value pairs similar to objects. Unlike sets and maps, maps allow any type of values used as keys, just not as strings or numbers. Okay, so like in objects, you can. Okay, so let's see what actually a map does first. So we'll be doing one thing, we'll be creating a very basic map. Let's take an example. Okay, so I'll simply say new, and we'll be creating a map. Very basic. Okay, so this is a map. So now what will a map do? Suppose we have two different keys. Okay, for some reason I have created two different keys. Okay, suppose I'll say that it has an id of 1. Okay, it has an id of 1, and suppose the second key has an id of 2, two different keys. Okay, so we can actually map these keys to some specific values. That means if suppose some value is Harshal, I can map this key to that value. If I call key of 1, then I'll get Harshal. Okay, if I call key of 2, I can actually get some other data. Okay, so you can actually map these values with some other values. Okay, so if one is called, other will be given, something like this. Okay, so what I can actually do is I'll say map dot set. So now you'll see the magic. You can simply set keys like this. So key 1 comma Harshal. Okay, Harshal, and similarly key 2 as, I'll say, suppose Viraj. Okay, so you can see that we have actually mapped the values like this. Okay, so it actually is used for mapping values like this. So now if I try to get the value of key 1, okay, so if I try to get the value of key 1, so you can simply type dot log map dot get key 1. Okay, so now it will simply give us the value of key 1. So if I try to print this, you can see I'm getting Harshal. Okay, again, if I want to get the value of key 2, you can simply get it this way. So you can see now I'm getting Viraj. Okay, so that's how you can get things. And you can also use a for each loop again. So for each loop, I'll just copy this. Okay, for each loop is actually easier than other loops, so that's why I'm using for each loop. Else you can use other loops also. Okay, so again, this is my map variable. Okay, so you can actually change the name of this variable. Okay, you can actually change the name of this variable, but this needs to be new capital M A P. Okay, so now if I try to print the values, you can see I'm getting Harshal and Viraj after this. So I'll just comment these. Now you'll see that I'm getting Harshal and Viraj because of this for each loop. Alright, so now I have explained what are maps and sets. So these are very basic and they are used for separate purposes. Like separate purpose simply means that set will contain unique elements. Map is used to map a value to another value. Okay, so sets and maps provide efficient and specialized data structures for storing and manipulating data in JavaScript. So they offer advantages such as uniqueness, ordered iteration, and flexible key value pairs. So we have created key value pairs using objects also and maps also. So consider using sets when you need a collection of unique values, and maps when you need key value pair associations with additional features like these features. You have assigned different keys to different values. Okay, suppose if I make it key 1. Okay, if I make it key 1, what will actually happen is You won't get that. Okay, you won't get that. So a unique key will be having a unique value. A unique key will be having a unique value. Okay, something like this. So it's not only about this. It's actually not only about this. Suppose I'll say that it has some string. It has some string. Okay, now if I say that this is some string, this is an object. Okay, so this key will be a string. Okay, this will be an object. Okay, so now let's see what actually happens here. So now you can see I'm actually getting the values. It's not in the case of normal objects. Okay, won't have work with normal objects like this way. So that's how you can actually work with maps. And map basically allows you to map any variable, any kind of variable, any kind of object, any kind of whatever data type you are looking for, to some other data type, to some other data type. Like some string is mapped to Harshal, this object is mapped to Viraj. All right, so I hope you got the idea how mapping works. So we'll be using it for different cases in the first future videos. So I hope you understood the difference between sets and maps, and you also understood the logic of objects. All right, so that's it for today's video. But before ending this video, if you have any doubts, you can actually ask me in the live chat. So today this was a very important video, because if you want to learn backend development or full stack development, data always comes in format of objects. Okay, data always comes in format of objects or an array of objects, something like this. Okay, so you need to watch this video very properly. If you haven't watched this, please watch this again, because this will clear all your doubts regarding the development part, how data comes from the backend and how you can get extract values from it, like I extracted different values, names, age, something like that. Okay, so I hope you understood this video. And before ending this video, in the live chat you can see that we have a link of a specific course. So if you want to learn data structures and algorithms in JavaScript, you can actually refer this course, and this is a latest course, so you can check out this course. And this is a paid course. You can see that we are actually covering a lot of more topics here, that is both for data structures and algorithms, and also the basic mathematics which are required for it. Okay, so if you want to learn it for JavaScript, that is for web development or app development, or people also use it for competitive programming also, so you can definitely buy this course and you can watch this if you want. All right, so I hope you understood this video, and in the next video we'll be covering more about objects. All right, so that's it for today, and I will see you in the next one. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in any of my videos, or you can message me on Instagram at @Harshal_3011. Okay, so see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.